Two of the events at that time that I remember with great clarity are the death of King George VI in 1952 and the coronation the following year. When the King died, I was just coming up to 14. I was at boarding school, and the house was called together early in the morning, and very solemnly the housemaster said, "The King has died." This came as a complete shock because we had no idea that he was ill. In fact, I don't think the grown-ups had any idea that he was ill at all. The news had been withheld, I would think. Then on to the coronation the following year, and I was fortunate enough to see the procession live from a first floor window overlooking Pall Mall. My father, being a senior insurance manager, had been invited to join a small group of business associates able to watch the coronation from that vantage point. Why was I lucky enough to be in Pall Mall watching the procession live, although I didn't realise at the time how fortunate I was? I think that my father would have been invited along with the other business people to bring their spouses, and I think my mother rather nobly thought Cedric would like to watch this, and I think she stood down and allowed me to take her place. I wish I'd realised that at the time, and I would have felt more grateful to her. The crowds below were lining the mall. It was a very cold day indeed, and it was raining when the procession came through. It was so cold, in fact, that the maximum temperature that year, I checked it, was in fact just the average for June, which was the month, was well, it was very cold. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, we will.
It was very cold, and it was raining. So the procession, when it came through, seemed to take forever. Now, I was pretty blasé about the whole thing, as teenagers tend to be. I think my attitude was, the coronation, so what? I want to get back to riding my bike. But anyway, I watched it. It took a very long time. The Queen was in her state coach. She was enclosed, so we didn't really see her. We may have glimpsed her through the window. And then she was gone, matter of a few seconds. And towards the rear of the procession were the Dad's Army of the Home Guard. And there was an ironical cheer for them because they, even in those days, had rather the reputation of Captain Mannering and his troops at Warmington-on-Sea. But not an unfriendly jeer, but ironical certainly. We were able to watch the proceedings on a small black and white screen in the room, and this was the first time that television had been used for a major outside broadcast, and it actually kick-started the whole mass ownership and rentership as well of television in this country, in the United Kingdom. I say rentership because it was quite common until relatively recently for people to rent their sets from people like Radio Rentals and so on. So that was Coronation Day for me. There were no, in our home, mugs, pictures or plates, commemorative plates. No doubt there were in various homes. My parents were as patriotic as the next people, but they didn't do that sort of memorabilia. So I don't remember any particular thing about celebrating the coronation as such. The other thing to say is that the whole nation was buoyed by the fact that on that day it was announced, or the news broke, that Hillary and Tenzing had climbed Mount Everest. It was the first confirmed ascent of the mountain. They actually reached the top 4 or 5 days before, and it does seem incredible that the news took that long. Well, the answer, of course, is that it didn't. It was, even in those days, it wasn't as fast as now, obviously, but it was still pretty fast. And the news was actually withheld so that it could be announced on Coronation Day, and it caused, of course, a massive impact, and it buoyed the country terrifically. I have now discovered the statistic about the weather on Coronation Day. In London, the maximum that year was 12 Celsius, and the minimum was 7 Celsius. That's against the June average over the years of 21 Celsius maximum and 13 Celsius minimum. So you see how very cold it was.